How to Get Your Students Out of the Box, episode 428.
The 10-Minute Teacher Podcast with Vicki Davis. Every weekday, you'll learn powerful, practical ways to be a more remarkable teacher today.
So today we're talking with Chester Asher, who runs the Chattahoochee Hills Charter School near Atlanta, Georgia. Asher, you are passionate about arts, ag, and the environment for educating children. Describe your school to us.
Our school looks like no other school. And so you get there. We have no hallways to go from one class to the other. You have to go outside and go to another class, walking on the trails, surrounded by trees and vegetation, a lot of native Georgia plants. We have a couple of animals on campus. We have a Daisy May, a horse. We have a couple goats. We have some pigs. We have some chickens, and really immersing kids in a different type of environment for a different type of schooling.
What are you teaching? Are you still teaching the same standard?
We're accountable in terms of the Georgia Standards of Excellence. And so, the same science, social studies, math, and ELA standards we have to address. We have an additional task of also addressing arts, agriculture, and the environment. And so we have the regular classes, but then we also have kids get agriculture as a specific standalone class. They get art also as a specific standalone class. And of course, they're already involved in science. And what's another aspect that is different is that even in their ELA class and their math class, they are talking about arts, agriculture, and environment. And so the challenge for our teachers is to integrate all of our different subject areas with arts, agriculture, and the environment on a consistent basis, and actually teach outside as frequently as possible to also give kids that experience and that connection with nature. We enjoy one of the, if not the lowest suspension rates in all of Fulton County. We had 6 total suspensions last year. And I think on average, Fulton County schools had, 230 something.
Wow.
We really attribute that to outdoor environment. Some people go into nature to meditate, to calm down, and we already have that baked in to just come to school.
What grade levels do you teach, and how long has the school been there?
This is our 5th year now. We are applying for our renewal as a charter school. Every 5 years, you have to apply for renewal. And so we're in the midst of our renewal currently. Mm-hmm. We're a K-8 school. We have about 540 scholars that attend.
There was a book from some years ago called Last Child in the Woods, and it actually talked about nature deficit disorder. And it talked about how kids who get out into nature, they deal with grief better, they deal with problems better, they deal with struggles better. And then what we've done is we've taken the kids out of nature, we've put them inside with all of these fluorescent lights, and they're just not handling it very well. What kind of benefits are you seeing from teaching outside? Why do you tell your teachers that I want you to teach outside as much as possible?
I think we talk a lot about kids thinking outside of the box while they're literally in a box. And so I think really breaking that mold and that frame. And so trying to have them think outside the box, actually outside of a box, outside in nature. And so, of course, some of the benefits we see are, like I spoke of, in terms of behavior. We have very minimal behavior issues at the school compared to other schools. We don't need to suspend as much because I think the environment lends itself to more civil, calmer behavior and actions. It hasn't all been easy, right? Teaching outdoors, integrating those 3 core components of the school into the regular education system and addressing the regular standards isn't an easy task, but we have a lot to accomplish still in terms of academically for our scholars. And I think this year is really the year where you'll see some of those academic gains greater than the other county schools. You'll really see them manifest. I think we've always outperformed our neighboring schools, but this year we're really seeking to start to climb in terms of the entire Fulton County.
What are the common problems or mistakes that you made in the early years that if a school is looking at some of this approach that you would hope they wouldn't make?
And so I think sometimes it's easy to talk about, we just teach outside, right? And so you have the same exact lesson just outside. I think that's been some of the pitfalls we had the first couple of years of the school, where now we're really looking at integrating the outdoors. And so if you're teaching about the Civil War, actually going outside, we have miles of trails actually behind the school, or even the American Revolution, and talking about guerrilla warfare and how they used the terrain to their advantage to beat the British in unconventional ways and styles, actually going out there and reenacting a battle or mock battle using the actual terrain. When you're talking about science and measurement, not just talking about volume and looking at things inside of the classroom, but actually going outside and, catching rainwater and measuring and seeing how much rain that actually is and how much water is then needed to feed a certain area of crop. And so calculating the volume, calculating the area, calculating the water per head of lettuce per se, and actually having that lettuce out there, making that learning tangible is really significant and leads to really significant academic gains.
So I have just a curiosity question, Asher. So your background, you have quite a lot of education. You've got a Master's of Teaching from Fordham, an MPA from NYU, and a law degree from Cardozo Law School. You've taught every single grade K-2 and even taught at the college level. How did you end up in Atlanta, Georgia, in a school that is nestled in nature?
Yeah, I was consulting before I came, and I had the privilege of consulting in Dubai, in Sweden, all up and down the East Coast. And I was having a lot of fun. And it was great. It was exciting. But for me, I think some of it lacked some purpose, right? So you go into a school, you identify some of the issues, you kind of tell them what they need to do, and you go home. And you don't really have a connection to the growth, a more significant part in the implementation of those actions that need to happen to improve the school and to really improve the lives of kids. And so one day someone sent me the job description for Chat Hills. I looked at it and it was interesting. It was just very different. And so I came here. I don't know how high my hopes were or my expectations were, but I think when I arrived, just physically being in the outdoors, I think the outdoors had an effect on me. I think almost a spiritual connection that I could take a huge deep breath. I'm coming from New York City, which is maybe the antithesis of nature at times. And so just my mindset and how I felt physically and spiritually was different. And I was like, wow, like maybe this is home. Maybe I can metaphorically plant roots here to really grow. And I think at the time in my life, it was just a great merging of alignment of situations, my situation, the school situation, and it turned out well and it worked.
You've traveled, you've consulted, and now you're at a school. If you went back to those schools to consult today, do you think you would talk more about the importance of getting kids outside?
Definitely. I think outside is actually just, it's a big component, but it's just one component. And so really, I think being outside, one of the benefits is that it lends itself to real world applications. And so when you're inside the class, I think everything seems very theoretical, seems very conceptual. You kind of have to imagine. Whereas when you go outside, you see it for what it is, and you're touching things. You're really experiencing, and it makes it real. And so I think really the outdoors creates a bridge to real world applications. And so you see that the learning isn't something that's just in a book. It's not something you have to kind of imagine and make connections just in your mind, but it's something that happens in the real world. And I always tell kids, you don't have to wait, kids talk about when I grow up or when I get out into the real world. And what we want to show them is that, no, now is the real world. And so for an example, one of the projects that we're working on this trimester is actually we have a magic music school bus. And so being an art school, we wanted to create a music studio. And so we purchased an old school bus, and our sixth graders are going to design the outside of the school bus, what it looks like, the landscaping that needs to happen around it. Our seventh graders are going to design the inside of the bus, where just in terms of spatially, how to structure things, the area and the volume and measurements where things need to be. And our eighth graders are actually going to take those plans and do a lot of the implementation, a lot of the grunt work, so to speak, of transforming that school bus into a music studio. And it's not only a music studio that they will be able to use, but that future generations of scholars who come to Chat Hills will be able to use because of the work, because of the real world work that they did. And so really showing kids that they are in the real world and what they do matter. it matters. It matters to them. It matters to the community. It matters to people they are yet to meet. It matters to the future. It matters to the world, and that they have an important role in that. And I think that's what education should be equipping people to make lives better, right? To bring more joy to themselves, their community, the world, and future generations.
His name is Chester Asher. The school is Chattahoochee Hills Charter School in Georgia. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you. And you can go to our website, chatthillscharter.org.
Hello, listeners. Would you do a favor? If you like the 10-Minute Teacher podcast, would you go to coolcatteacher.com/iTunes? That will take you to the iTunes store for the show, and leave a review or give a rating. It really does help other people find the show. Thanks.
Thank you for listening to the 10-Minute Teacher podcast. You can download the show notes and see the archive at coolcatteacher.com/podcast. Never stop learning.